Dear student teachers, welcome to today's program. Today we are going to learn approach, method, technique and structural oral situational approach in teaching of English. Dear student teachers, you are all aware that we are teaching English to our students from class 1 to 10, that means 10 years at school level. In our teaching, we have some academic standards. In our teaching, we keep in view some academic standards. They are listening and speaking. That means our students should be in the position to listen English and understand it, and they should speak intelligibly in English. That means they should be understandable to all the people in the world, and they should read English and comprehend it, and they should have some vocabulary to express their ideas, and they need some knowledge of grammar. They know some information related to conventions of writing, and they should be in the position to express their ideas in writing, which we call creative expression. It may be oral, it may be written. And for that we have textbooks with us. We have textbooks. A textbook is one of the tools in the hands of the teacher. Along with textbooks we use some other material also in our classrooms. They may be newspapers, magazines, wrappers, brochures and some other authentic materials. Some other books can be make use in the classroom for effective development of English proficiency in our students. Dear student teachers, in our methods of teaching English, we come across certain words. They are approach, method and technique. Today we learn the clear meaning of these terms in connection with English language teaching. Edward Anthony, in the year 1963, he is a famous linguist. He clearly explained these terms. Let us try to understand what is meant by an approach. An approach is a set of correlative assumptions dealing with the nature of language teaching or learning. An approach is axiomatic. It describes the nature of the subject matter to be taught. This is the one quotation that was given by Edward Anthony, dear student teachers. Here let us analyze it. It is a set of some assumptions about teaching of English language. That means some linguists, some persons, those who work on language, they develop some ideas. What are the different ways of teaching English? How best we can teach English to people? What are the easy ways? How do people learn? And all these things, all these ideas related to teaching of English are known as some assumptions or correlative assumptions of a language. And this also approach also explains, describes the nature of the language. And it is axiomatic. That means approach is very clear. It is unquestionable. It gives information with some evidences, and it describes the subject matter and what type of subject matter is to be taught in our classrooms in order to develop language proficiency in our students. That's my then we can make out with the help of this information. One approach is one set of assumptions. The assumptions are ideas that are developed by linguists related to language teaching in our classrooms. And it is a theory about language learning, dear students, and these approaches are fuzzy, and they are sometimes they are hard to define because they are very broad in nature, dear student teachers. And let us conclude here, and by this we can understand it very well, dear student teachers. That means approach describes nature of the language. It also describes how do people learn the language. Dear student teachers, bear this thing in your mind. We teach in the classroom. How do we teach? What is our aim? What are the steps we take up in the classroom? And everything is related to our teaching learning to help students to understand well, and these things are given by an approach. The approach gives clear information how do people learn the language, what are the effective ways of teaching language, and also it deals with the philosophy of the language. And it is very clear, dear student teachers, that means axiomatic means the information that is there in the approach is very clear, that is self-evident and that is unquestionable. By this we can conclude here approach is related to that philosophy of language teaching and learning, and it gives information what to teach in the classroom in order to develop English language proficiency in our classroom, students in our classrooms. And also this from the approach it gives rise to some methods, and the way of teaching. Method is way of teaching. Method explains how to teach information and teach something, which use classroom activities or techniques to help learners learn. That is the difference between method and approach, dear student teachers. These are the some approaches we use in our classrooms. They are structural approach, communicative approach, situational approach, oral approach, multi-skill approach, eclectic approach. These are some of the examples of approaches in English language teaching. And let us try to understand what is meant by a method. Method is an overall plan for the orderly presentation of language material, no part of which contradicts and all of which is based upon the selected approach. An approach is axiomatic, a method is procedural. Within one approach there can be many methods. This is about methods, dear student teachers. Method means overall plan. For example, approach explains what to teach. Method, it gives how to teach this information. For example, at a school level we teach English from class 1 to 10. Approach gives information what are the material that we should use in the classroom. Method explains how to use this material in a systematic way, from simple to complex, easy to difficult, so that we can implement it very effectively without any problem in the classroom, plus from class 1 to 10 and 10 years of course. This method gives that entire information. That means it gives information, that procedure that is to be followed in the classroom for 10 years. That is the difference between a method and an approach, dear student teachers. That means it gives some complete plan. It explains how to teach that material. What in class 1, what is the type of the material that we have to use? In class 2, in class 3, what are the differences? How do we progress implementing this language material in our classrooms? What are the activities we have to implement? In order to develop a complete proficiency after completion of 10 years of teaching English, what is the procedure we should follow in the classroom is clearly explained by a method. And with the help of this quote, it is very clear that approach is the level at which assumptions and beliefs about language and language learning are specified, and whereas method is the level at which theory is put into practice and at which choices are made about the particular skills to be taught and the order in which the content will be presented. Then come to technique is the level at which classroom procedures are described. This is about method and approach, dear student teachers. That means approach explains what to teach. Method explains how to teach in a systematic way in one course of time, from class 1 to 10, that from class one class to other class, what are the material we have to teach. Those things are explained by method in a systematic way. Then come to technique. Technique means, techniques, that is implementational, dear students, that which actually takes place in a classroom. It is a particular trick, it is one particular strategy or contrivance used to accomplish an immediate objectives. That means we use many techniques, dear student teachers, in our classrooms. You know, for example, I want to teach a vocabulary, I use some techniques. And technique should always be consistent with a method and therefore in harmony with an approach as well. And see, this is the concept of Edward Anthony, and technique should be consistent with method. Technique and method should be consistent with one approach, which we have chosen to implement in our classroom teaching procedure. Then, for example, let us try to understand what is meant by one technique. Dear students, we use techniques in classrooms. I want to teach vocabulary word strawberry, that means that strawberry, that word and that thing I would like to introduce my students in the classroom. For example, it may be class 2. I follow one technique. For example, if strawberries are available in my area, I bring this one real strawberry and introduce this word to my students. My students can understand. Here I used real objects. Using real objects is one technique to present one vocabulary word, that is one type of fruit, strawberry. And sometimes I would like to present some actions. For example, running. I would like to present cycling, that one word, one performing action to class 3 student or class 2 student, it may be class 1 student. I use one technique, show some pictures. I would like to show all the pictures to my students and present those words. This is one technique I would like to take up in my classroom to present some performing actions to my students. For example, crawling. You observe here in this, there are various actions you can see. Playing football. A boy is enjoying. A boy is running. A boy is flying a kite. A boy is taking bath in a tub. In this way, these different actions I can present to my students, primary students, by showing some pictures to them. This is my strategy. Sometimes I also perform actions in the classroom so that my students can attain complete understanding of vocabulary words. This is one technique. Here, in order to present vocabulary words, that means performing actions, day-to-day actions to my students, I used some pictures in the classroom, or sometimes I perform actions, sometimes I bring some various things, real things in the classroom. I may show some pictures while I am teaching vocabulary words to my students. This everything is one technique. Using pictures is one technique. Using real object is one technique. Performing actions is one technique. This is why in this way we use techniques in the classroom, dear student teachers. Sometimes we use flashcards. This is one wonderful technique of teaching vocabulary. You observe a small video, dear students, here.
When introducing or revising a set of flashcards with the children, use the technique flash. Get the children's attention. Everyone looking this way, please. Are you ready? And then show them the flashcard very fast. Children, identify what's on the flashcard. It's an elephant. Yes, very good. Be ready to... When introducing or revising a set of flashcards with the children, use the technique flash. Get the children's attention. Everyone looking this way, please. Are you ready? And then show them the flashcard very fast. Children, identify what's on the flashcard. It's an elephant. Yes, very good. Be ready to remodel or recast if they respond in their first language. An alternative way of doing this is to use the technique.
In this way, dear student teachers, we can use some flashcards in the classroom to present vocabulary words. That is one technique we use. And here, dear student teachers, the skill of a second language teacher lies in selecting an approach, method and techniques in view of the learner's educational, social and economical background. And what is the best method of teaching English to our students? What is the best approach that is to be taken up to teach English very effectively to our students? The history of language teaching presents a fascinating variety of methods. If there is such a variety of methods, which one are we to choose? There is no definite answer to this question. And what works with one learner may not work with another. One may be wizard of grammar, another may just hate it. Others might enjoy memorizing sentences. This may we come across individual differences, and different students follow different styles of learning, and that's why there is no special particular method or approach that is suitable, that is quite appropriate in our classrooms. And if you observe, dear student teachers, you see interactive approach classrooms nowadays. That's the most suggesting classroom technique, that the classroom approach is the interactive approach. In this interactive approach, students learn through some sort of collaboration, learning by doing, and share their ideas among themselves. And this interactive approach, the classroom, the teacher is just one facilitator, and students will be given great importance in the classroom. Their voices are heard and they will be given value. And here in this interactive approach, the teacher's speaking is less and the students' speaking is more. Students' involvement is more, students' speaking is more, student voice is more in the classroom than a teacher's voice. And you observe nowadays, we observe in our state also, we are using digital classrooms, digital techniques in our classrooms. Just we are moving from conventional classrooms to digital classroom techniques. We are using that information technology in the classrooms to provide good understanding to our students, to provide latest information to our students. We are using digital classrooms in our schools, dear student teachers. Within a short while, we find digital classrooms in every school in our state. And also, you observe our way of teaching is changed, and our way of looking at teaching and learning is also changed nowadays, dear student teachers. And teacher is here in today's classroom teaching is just one co-learner, because the knowledge that is changing rapidly, and students they are accessing this knowledge, and they are accessing the knowledge with the help of digital technology and information technology, and they are using various tools such as mobiles, computers, mobiles, and information technology is wonderfully being utilized by our students in our classrooms and nowadays, dear student teachers. That's why our way of teaching, and as a teacher, our proficiency, our way of teaching, our view of teaching learning also should be changed according to changing technology in our education. And students are encouraged to use open educational resources. It may be videos, it may be in the form of word, it may be in the form of videos, images which are available in internet. And students are accessing web pages to access knowledge, the latest and up-to-date knowledge, and we should encourage this type of learning in our students. And learn anything, anytime, any place is nowadays the slogan of present day learning, dear student teachers. And you can learn anything, anytime, any place. And you observe here modern learning style.
A chalkboard, a desk, the homework, the books. The day begins and ends when the bells ring.
For centuries now, this has defined what all of us think about school. We have come to believe that this is the one way that students will learn. And with that belief, we have taught all of our students in pretty much the exact same way. But the world has changed, and what it means to be ready to succeed in the future has also changed. That means our model of learning must change. It's happening now, and it needs to happen even more. In more places, for all students, especially for those for whom the current system isn't working. There is strong data that shows we need to rethink learning. Like remodeling a house, we're not just adding a new coat of paint, we're updating the outdated parts and making it more modern and efficient, strengthening what works and fixing what doesn't. Gone are the days when some students can excel and others just get by. Our society needs all kids to excel at high levels. And to make this happen, we need to engage our students like never before. This is student-centered learning. It incorporates a student's skills and interests into the learning process, making the experience more personalized and involving the student in his or her own future. What makes this work? There are 4 key principles of student-centered learning. Number 1. Learning is personalized. Personalized learning happens when teachers know students, have strong relationships with them, and can meet students where they are in their development. Number 2, learning is competency-based. Learning is about the information and skills a student has mastered, not just moving through a curriculum. In a competency-based system, students can proceed at their own pace in every subject, enabling teachers to respond to individual needs, interests, and challenges. Number 3, learning happens anytime, anywhere. Students will often make important discoveries about themselves and the world around them when they learn beyond the traditional school day and outside the traditional school walls. Learning doesn't start and stop when the bells ring. And number 4, the last key to student-centered learning is students take ownership. Don't make a decision about students without students. They play a direct role in their own success, actively engaging with the process to ensure the impact is lasting and meaningful. For student-centered learning to work, all 4 of these principles must work together. This is not an a la carte approach. It's reimagining education so it works for all students. The fact is, our world is changing. And with the latest in child development research, we know better than ever before how children and young adults learn. The facts are there, and they point to the need for a new system of learning designed around each student. And when this student becomes stronger and more focused, all of us will benefit from a new generation that is contributing to our communities and our world in so many ways. This is student-centered learning.
Okay, dear student teachers, just you observe student-centered learning. Now, with the help of this, we can make out what's the best teaching method for learning English. According to academic research, linguists have demonstrated that there is not one single best method for everyone in all contexts, and that no one teaching method is inherently superior to the others. And here the best suggestive methods here are interactive approach and constructive approach, dear student teachers, in nowadays. In interactive approach, the classrooms, there will be more student talk and less teacher talk. Students are given opportunity to interact with the teacher and with other students. And you should bear in mind, in our present pedagogy, while using our English textbooks, you should use interactive approach and constructive approach in our classrooms, dear students. These are suggested, and you may make use of other approaches and methods also along with these approaches. The students are expected to construct knowledge and meaning out for what they are taught by connecting them to prior experience. That means we call it as constructivist approach. That means, what is meant by constructivist approach, dear student teachers? We learn new things. Our new things or new learning is always based on our previous learning. That is called constructivist approach. That is why every time when you are teaching something to your students, bear in your mind that you should link the present knowledge to previous knowledge. Then only the learning will be taken place. That means, new knowledge is always based on previous knowledge, and again new knowledge on previous knowledge. In this way, you should construct, you should give chance to students to construct their knowledge. You are only the facilitator. This is a constructivist approach, dear student teachers, and this is a new paradigm. That is, we call it as constructivism. Based on this, we have new textbooks with us. And one other thing you should bear in mind: eclectic approach. This is in the move away from teachers following one specific methodology. The eclectic approach is the label given to a teacher's use of techniques and activities from a range of language teaching approaches and methodologies. That means, this is based on the interest of the teacher, based on the requirement of the students. A teacher can choose the best suitable method in his classroom, and he can engage students in that and develop students' proficiency. And that is why finally we can conclude like this, and we should choose the method by keeping in view the age, mental level, interest, attitude, aptitude, environment of the child, the learning needs of the children, and learners' specific objectives, learning styles that are there, that the student is accessed, and the context of the learner, and all these things we should bear in mind and make use of the available that methods in the classroom, and you can use them, and by keeping our academic standards in view. That means, we call it as a teacher's autonomy, dear student teachers. A teacher has given complete freedom to choose his way of teaching in the classroom. And the one thing the teacher should bear in mind, the ultimate that objective of teaching should be achieved, and according to his convenience, according to his will, according to his wish, and according to his interest, according to the interest of the students, the teacher can choose approach, method and technique and make use of them in the classrooms to benefit the students in a maximum extent. And observe here some techniques here.
Hello, Maggie.
Hello, Maggie.
Oh, hello, children. Good morning. Leg. It's a leg. Say, it's a leg. Good. Where's your leg? Where's your leg? Super. And pat your legs. Pat your legs. Good. And stop. Super. See? Foot. It's a foot. Foot, foot, foot. Good. So we have it's a foot.
That is why, dear student teachers, here we can conclude here. Teachers can make best use of techniques and different styles of teaching in the classroom according to his convenience and interest of the students, and you should bear in mind our academic standards. And now let us understand structural oral situational approach, SOS approach. We call it in a short form. And what is meant by structural oral situational approach? What are its features? How can we use this approach in our classroom teaching? And structural approach means we use structures in the classrooms to develop English proficiency in our students. That's all. Structural approach means by using structures we can develop English proficiency. Now let us try to understand what is meant by a structure. It is a structure means the arrangement of words. That's all, dear student teachers. The arrangements of words in English is very, very important. The meaning of an utterance changes with a change in the word order. For example, the arrangement, the word order is there in English. That is very important. You observe this. You observe these sentences. You observe same words in all these three sentences. Same words are used. You are there. Are you there? There you are. These three sentences, you observe same words, but they convey different meanings. That means this arrangement of words in a sentence is called structure. The arrangement of words in a sentence is known as structure, and these you observed these three sentences. They built off the same vocabulary items, same words, but they give different meanings because the way of arrangement is different. Hence, the way of arrangement of words in a sentence is known as a structure. And these structures are of four types. Structures in English can be categorized into four different types. One is sentence pattern, number 2 is formulas, number 3 phrase pattern, number 4 is idioms. You observe sentence patterns. There are two books on the table. This is one sentence. This is known as sentence pattern. I bought this. Did he play? All these are sentence patterns. And also some are known as formulas. We use formulas in our day-to-day life in certain occasions. These are a group of words used regularly in certain occasions. You say, good morning, how are you, how do you do, many thanks, you are welcome. All these is a group of words we use. Some situations are known as formulas. This is one type of structures. And you use phrase patterns in our language also, dear student teachers. For example, where are keys? You don't give complete answer in our day-to-day life when you use language. Where are keys? Keys are on the table, we don't say, just we say on the table. Where are keys? On the table. In this way, we use some words, a group of words in order to convey our idea to others in our communication. These are called phrase patterns. In the school, on the table, with a knife. There are some other type of sentences are there. They are called idioms. These are some groups of words. We should use them as a whole. That means these are groups of words should be taught as a whole and not as separate words. That means they give one special meaning. Their intended meaning is different, their literal meaning is different. You observe this? She cried crocodile tears. We should not take literal meaning here. The intended meaning in this sentence should be understood. She cried fake tears. That is the meaning of that, and that means she didn't cry. That means that is not natural one. She cried crocodile tears. She shed crocodile tears. That means she acted like she is crying, but she is not crying. That is the meaning of this. And this type of sentences are known as idioms. See here, the main that concept of a structural approach is in the learning of a foreign language. Mastery of structures is much more important than the acquisition of vocabulary. You come across vocabulary will be there. Some words are there in any language. Just if you master your words, any number of words, that is not useful to develop our language proficiency. Only words are not useful for language development. What is very important is the mastery over certain structures. Just you observe 4 types of structures. These structures are to be taught to our students in a systematic way, in a systematic procedure to our students that leads to language proficiency. That is the entire outcome, that entire meaning of a structural approach. That means here there are about it states that the students must master 275 structures. That means in English teaching we should select certain structures and we should teach these structures in our classrooms. These structures, by teaching certain selected structures in a systematic way, our students attain language proficiency. This is the belief of structural approach, and this is the main principle of structural approach. And here, what are the principles in structural approach? That means it states that speech is very important. In case of you come to English, English speaking is very important, is because it is an international language, and communication is very important for the development of any person. This is useful. This also elevates the opportunities. That job opportunities will be elevated, and this will be the language of opportunities. Not only English, dear students, any language, the student should be in the position to use that language very effectively. They should have good communication skills. That is very important. That is the speech is very important, and this good speaking elevates that individual confidence levels, and this also helps to build a educational job career. And here the structural approach stresses that speech is very, very important. It is we are teaching a language to students, means our main intention, first intention is to make our student to speak that language. It may be any language, it may be Telugu or Hindi or English, whatever may be the language that we are teaching. That language means the first thing and foremost thing we should bear in mind, that we are enabling them or we are helping them to speak that language. That means it may be whatever may be the language. I am learning one language, for example, I am learning a language, means first I should learn how to speak that language. Speech is the fundamental thing in language learning, and you think of reading and writing, they are secondary. Then after that speaking, gradually it leads to reading and writing automatically. And that means speech is very, very important in any language learning. You observe there are many languages in this world. Some languages are there only on the tongues of the people. They don't have any written symbols. For example, you take Koya language. Tribals in certain occasions, Koya Dora, Konda Dora, such type of tribes which are there in our Telangana and Andhra Pradesh forest, they speak Koya language. It has no script. A Lambada language, it has no script. That means speech is very important in the language. And there are no the written symbols to those languages. But there are hardly any language which has written symbols but no spoken form. For example, Sanskrit you take, we don't find people speak Sanskrit nowadays. And here we follow that oral approach. That means we should give oral practice in the classroom. You may take this information and you can make use of this in our classrooms. That structural approach emphasizes oral practice in the classroom teaching. That is why we call it oral. That means structural oral approach. That means we also give oral practice to our students. It states that speech is there in existence for thousands of years in this world. Just if you compare it with a long history of language development, writing is a matter of yesterday. That means speech is there for thousands of years. After speech, just the man started giving some symbols, then gradually it leads to writing, development of writing. That is why in language means speech, language means oral practice. That is why structural approach, it encourages and it suggests, it give a lot of importance to speech or speaking practice or oral practice in the classrooms. And habit formation, and language languages are made up of habits. Then that means, for example, I am speaking, it may be mother tongue, it may be English, whatever may be the language, and when we are speaking, we speak non-consciously. And that means we don't think of the way of speaking or structures and all those things while we are speaking. That means we call it as unreflective right utterances. and that is automatically we speak. We don't think how we are speaking, how we are arranging words, and this it is like it's a sort of automatic process, and that is why this is one habit formation. This structural approach states that language is a sort of habit formation. In order to develop some habit formation, we need a wonderful practice to students. Speaking should be a matter of that habit formation. If you give that speaking habit to our students, gradually they attain the proficiency of language. That is the essence and that we should understand from this. And how to, there are many structures, dear student teachers, in English language, and we have to select them by following some principles. And by keeping the average abilities of the students, we select some structures. There are many structures, and we select some structures, and we teach these structures in a systematic way from class 1 to 10. This is the main important feature of structural, one of the important features of structural approach. That means there may be many structures, we don't teach all the structures. We follow some principles, we select some structures, we teach them in a systematic way. It's from simple to complex, easy to difficult, like that. And you follow, you see usefulness. Some structures are very useful. This is a pen, this is a book, this is a table. You observe the structure, this is very, very important. It shows usefulness of the structure. We should follow this principle. Then productivity. Some structures are more productive than other structures. You observe this. Mr. John is here, here is Mr. John. Here two structures are here. The pattern 1 and pattern 2. Mr. John is here, is more productive. Hari is here, John is here, she is here, he is here. You don't say here is Hari, here is he. You don't follow like that. We make use of the first sentence. That is why we should follow and we should teach that type of structures to our students. That means we should bear in mind the structure that we are implementing or we are giving practice to our student must be productive. And again, the next one is we should follow simplicity. While we are presenting structures, we should proceed from simple to complex, easy to difficult. Simple structures should be taught first. I am playing cricket. It's a simple thing. You present this and you observe the second structure. The patient had died before the doctor came. This is also structure. That's why this is somewhat difficult structures. Later we should teach that type of structures. Simple structures should be taught first, and structures we select should contain one other quality that is known as teachability. That means we can teach some structures very easily in the classroom. For example, I am writing. I may write on the blackboard. While I am writing, I may say, I am writing. That means I demonstrate that in the classroom. That's why that structure, it has teachability. That means the structures which we can demonstrate before students, which we can perform actions in the classroom, which we can convey very easily to students, should be taught first. That means that is known as teachability. And gradation of structures, and we should structures should be graded, and based on that we should teach those structures to our students. First you take 2-part patterns, then 3-part patterns, then 4-part patterns, and then use some patterns beginning with there. There are 20 students in this class. The patterns beginning with a question verb, then you follow that. Is she coming? Are you going there? Will you come tomorrow? And these structures we follow a systematic presentation of presenting these structures, systematic process we should follow. And then later we should follow patterns beginning with the WH questions, and then we should teach our students some commands and some requests. In this way we should present systematically to our students. And in our structural approach, dear student teachers, and we may use structures in the classroom and present those structures orally to students, and by using some situations, for example, use some situations, create some situations, for example, perform actions. For example, while you are closing door, I am closing the door, I am opening the door. In this way, a teacher can perform actions in the classroom, and then teacher should give practice, wonderful practice to students. That is why we call it presenting structures or teaching structures orally by creating situations. That is why we call this approach as structural oral situational approach. You may make best use of these concepts which are we observed in this structural oral approach, and you can make use of them in your classrooms, dear student teachers. And finally, I would like to conclude here by saying that now we are in tremendous change, that a great change is going on in every walk of our life. Same in the case of in our classroom teaching and learning, and the tools of teaching are changed, the tools of learning are changed. In this context, we should make use of different the varieties of techniques in our classrooms, and let our students make benefit out of them and attain a wonderful proficiency in English. I wish you very good luck, dear student teachers. Thank you very much.